Hey YouTube family, it's your girl Jazzy, getting jazzy with jazz. And if y'all want to have a good time, YouTube family, just like I do, come on over. And I need y'all to go ahead and do this for me, like, comment, and subscribe. And then we're going to get the party started. Hey YouTube family, it is early Friday morning. Last when I looked before I started recording the video, it was 2:50 a.m. and I stayed up for y'all. But you see, I got this on, and as soon as I can go ahead and take this off, and as soon as I get done doing this review for y'all, I'm getting in the bed. So this is The Chi Season 7, Episode 9, Lost Respect. And rightfully so, because I'm like, Reginald, let me tell you something. Do you really think that you're going to have all the respect if you're going around shooting people just for the hell of it? Because, okay. So Hannibal moves Emmett's body and Reg's receipt, request. And the ninja was scared, I mean, not necessarily he was scared, but how somebody can just be looking like WTF. I mean, I'm like, well, that's your homeboy. Nobody knew that he was your homeboy, but now I know he is homeboy. Oof. And then we're gonna run to the hospital room amidst Emmett getting, shot. And then the nurses saying only immediate family, and poor Jada and Damien and Darnell and Keisha and Tiff are all there. And the nurse said can't nobody come in but immediate family. So of course Jada says that, well, we are his parents and this is his brother. Damien is his brother. And Keisha is saying, what's taking so long? And then Keisha and Tiff, they just sitting down, both pregnant and all. And I don't know if y'all remember that, where Tiffany said, oh, we just gonna both be just sitting around doing the same thing, just waddling and waddling and waddling. But this not a good situation. This not a good occasion, a reason. But I just thought about that. And they definitely were both just sitting up saying pregnant and all. And then Keisha is saying, well, what's taking so long? Because, Darnell and Jada and Ethan, they went in the room with Emmett. And Keisha and Tiff, they both sitting down, both pregnant, like I already said. And then Keisha said that she can't lose Emmett. And Tiff says, but you won't lose him. And then everyone is in the waiting room. When I tell you the whole cast of The Chi was up in their waiting room. So, here we go. Jamal, Dom, and Shad, Vic, Papa, and Nook. And Nook wanted to know what happened. He is asking to speak to Keisha. And he asked, here it come, y'all, here it come. He asked Keisha, can he trust her? Well, she says, you can tell me anything. I'm the mother of your son. And then Nook says the cops wants to know, where Reg and we working together. And they want me to help them find him. And then she says that he is staying at Jake's apartment. And then Nook in the cut. When I say in the cut, the dark parts of the cut. Of the cut in the night. And he snatches up Jake. And Jake saying, where your brother at? And then Jake said, I'm not telling. I'm like, boy, hush. And I'm like, you better tell if you're trying to be safe, because you got to remember, Nathan, aka Nook, he will I mean, I learned some stuff about him that I knew, but it was never said. But this was the information episode right here. And then he said he ain't telling. And then Nook says that Reg said, hold on. And then he ended up telling him where he was at, and then he told him that he was at Jake's old apartment. So of course he knew where he was going and he knew where to go. And then Red says, Red say, Ninja, if Emmett passes, the whole city gonna be on his. And then Jake said, that's what Jake, and I forgot that part, y'all. But then that's when Jake say, I ain't telling you. And then he say, he rolled with, because he said, okay, he rolled with some dude named Hannibal. And then he said, you know him? He said, yeah, I do. And just walked back in the darkness, the dark hallway, and back at the hospital, Darnell asked Damien, what happened to his face? He said, what happened to your face? And then he said, you know what happened. Darnell said, I know. Because he trying to get sassy with the black fingernails. And he said, looked like somebody whooped your ass. And I want to know why. Then Jada said, I should have gave him all the money. And Darnell he looked and he beside himself. And then he said that he can't lose Jada. Then Jada said, remember, the doctors told you that you don't believe the doctors. Then she said, remember, you said the doctors don't have the last word, God does. And then he fires back at Damien to say, if you call gambling again, then I will remove you from our lives. And then Jada said, you can't say that. You can't say that to him. And he said, I did. I just did. And then Damien said, I'm done. And he says that I will believe. And then Darnell said, okay, I believe that when I see it. And I'm like, And he said, you need to pray. You need to pray that he wake up. He said, I'll pray. I do pray. And I'm like, Damien, you do? Okay, moving on. The way you was up in that stall on the last episode with Miss Carucci Tran, I'm like, boy, stop. You just like your daddy, and you just like your brother. And then Jake, Vic, and Shad, they all talking in the road and asking, what we gonna do? And then Vic says, we gonna sit his ass down. And then Shad cuts in to say, he your brother. And then he said, you can't throw him away. And Vic says, Emmett has been more of a brother to me than Reg ever has. And then Shad just was done, I guess. Shad was done. And then Nut creeps to knocking on Hannibal's door, and his wife answers, and Nuck says, I need to talk to your husband. And then he said he didn't know that he was even married. And then Kyla Pratt is the wife, honey. I'm just telling y'all, one-on-one, Kyla Pratt, Penny Proud from the Proud family. She the wife. And then Nuck says that he knows he took Reg to the hospital pretty much, and he appreciate him without him saying it, because he do. And then Nuck then tells my girl, Kyla Pratt, you tough. And then she says, you ain't met my sister. And he said, he was talking to Hannibal now on this part. He said, help me help you. And then he said, you the cops. And then he said, now. And then he jumps up after Nuck offers to protection, telling him to keep his eyes on Reg, and he gonna need a place to stay. And then he told him that he pretty much gonna come around like the bum that he is and be trying to lay down on his couch and all that stuff. And Kyla Pratt pretty much said instantly, he can't stay here. He can't stay here. He cannot stay here. That's what she said. And then Nuck did attest to the Hannibal response of him saying, is he the cops? And then says that, he said that you the cops. And then Nuck says that he ain't doing nothing that Q didn't do. And then Hannibal said, but he did. And then Nuck said, because I told my boss to unalive him. Do I? All the circles, they all wrap back around to each other. That's why I say everybody in this show know each other some kind of way. They all gonna come in the show at one point in time in a certain, vicinity. And it's gonna all tie up. And then he tells, Duda. And then he then said, you the mastermind? And then he said, okay, I keep you up. I keep you up pretty much. Okay, and then he leaves. And then Jamal tells Dom, if Emmett passes, at least his legacy, because we back at the hospital now. If Emmett passes, then at least he can live through his kids. She then said, I don't want kids because I don't want any. And then Jamal says that I do. And he then says we can get Pastor Zeke to counsel us. And she said, no, Pastor Zeke. No. She pretty much don't trust him. Don't nobody trust Pastor Zeke. Ezekiel, don't nobody trust Pastor Zeke. And then she said that she would rather it not be him, and she wants a real counselor. And I'm like, okay, girl. And then back to Hannibal's household. Then he tells Nuck that he will find out where he lands, because the missus said that Reg can't stay there. Of course, I already told y'all that, but you already know that she was not gonna let Reg stay there. Cause everybody know that he a total F up. And then Vic goes to Jake's crib and then tells him to get out. Get out. Then Red says, this ain't your crib, Reg. And I hate when he called him Reg. I mean, Trig. My bad. Trig. And I'm like, dang, it's Victor. And then he said, you can't kick me out. Then Jake said, I can. Get the out, bro. And then Reg laughs and says that y'all serious? Y'all gonna choose this Kenny Lattimore over me? Get out. And he hands him his crap. And then Vic put the law down to throw him out. When I say throw him out, get out. I'm like, get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Because Big Brother Vic came through. And yes, he is the big brother. And Alicia shows up asking if Tiff has a will. Because we back to them. And then she said, do you have a will? And she said, and then Alicia looks. Then she says that she will arrange for her to meet with her lawyer. And Tiff says that I can get my own lawyer. And then she said, people always think that they have more time than they do. And then Jake and Vic are mopping the floor. And then Hannibal drops by and he asks where he is. You know, he asks where Reg is. And then Vic says that he don't know. He don't know. He don't know where he at. He don't know where he can be found. Then we running to find Reg because he at Reagan Gomez's house. Now, Reagan Gomez, that is Dante's little jaunt that they were showing an episode or so ago. Because she was supposed to be Dante's girl. And Dante said that she would and all this stuff. And they was getting into it with each other. So we at Reagan Gomez's house. And then, wow, she asked, WTF happened to your face? And she asked, why did he shoot him? And he says that anybody that come at me and they act like they want to do something, pretty much, I'm gonna always take, I'm gonna always bust back. And I'm like, ooh, girl, you want him? And I'm like, oh, wait. And then she says, and look at where it got you. Alone. And he says, I'm not alone. I got you. And then he smile? She then smiles. And her name is Candace. And then she says that he can stay with her until he figures out his next move. And then he smiled and he kissed her. I said, oh, Lord Jesus. Now Hannibal in the car texting Reg. And he said he saw his brothers. And then Reg pretty much texted him, F them ninjas. And then just like that, he got his location. And he got to get the location for two people. He got to get the location for Nook. And when he get the location for Nook, then Nook gonna get the location and give it to Detective Tucson. It's all working around, y'all. And then now he didn't already text the location, and Keisha told Damien it's all his fault. And he says that he didn't tell him to confront him. Then she gets up and she says, I feel like I can't be here. And she said, I'm about to leave. And then Tiff says, where you going? And she said, Smokies. She said, if I can't support him here, I feel helpless, then I can manage his business. And she opens up the restaurant. And then she puts the chairs down. She put some food, got the food out the freezer and stuff. And then she put the money in the registers. And she got everything snap, crackling, and popping. And then Dom says that she will, Dom comes in. And then she said, dang, Keisha, you didn't clean this place up better than the employees do. And Dom says that she will, she said that she appreciates the help. And then Keisha was asking, do you know anybody? And then she said, okay, I can text Kenya because it's Dom. Dom said, I can text Kenya and see if she want to come back, and work the register. And then she also said that she has a friend that can help out temporarily until Emmett is ready to come back. And then she said, I got you. She said she's trustworthy. And then Zeke and Sarah are talking at the church. And Sarah then says that she the church is too small. She then says Zeke, because Zeke ain't trying to, Zeke ain't trying to see her no more. He about want his ex-wife back. And, he says that he tells her that, so pretty much she was calling him Zeke. And he told her that she don't have the right no more to call him Zeke. And then she said, okay. And then she said, okay, bye, Ezekiel. I said, yes, Ezekiel. Get on up out of there, Sarah. Go on, girl. Goodbye, Ezekiel. She said, goodbye, Ezekiel. I'm like, And Pastor Zeke's ex-wife and her mom, which is Phylicia Rashad, they find a weapon in Kenya's drawer. And you do know that Kenya was Zay's baby mama. So the baby that Kenya got, that's Zay's baby. And they were talking before he was unalive. They was talking in the car. And he gave her the weapon, the pow-pow to hold, for, her safety. And she was just pretty much saying that she's scared. And Phylicia Rashad and Zeke's ex-wife, they said, because she said that she's going to talk to Candace. She was going to talk to Kenya. And then, no, she said, no, you need to talk to her father. And then I said, ooh, wait. And then Reg is on Candy's couch. And then Keith comes up to the room, saying, he's like, what the? And he jumps up. You know how Reg always be jumping up like he tough and all that stuff. I'm like, boy, stop. Then Keith says that I didn't know this was a halfway house. And Candace says that, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that Keith was in here and he just got out and this my brother. And then they was just talking and they was just conversating and bonding and all that stuff. And then when they finally got it together, then they settle things with, a little puff. And he says that he shot Emmett. And then he say his brother lost the bet. And he beat him up. And then Keith says that, and he just got fired. And then he said he was working at Smokey's. Then they both, Keith and Reg, they continued to share the blunt and just shooting, because Reg don't take nothing serious because he act like a big kid himself. And then Emmett is still, resting, and Darnell and Jada, they both go to get some coffee. And Damien shares that he is going to get some, coffee. Well, hold on. Damien says that he's going to get some coffee. That was Jada and Darnell, because Jada said that she wanted some coffee, and then Darnell went with her. And then it goes back to Damien, and he was talking to a few people in the rehab. And I just figured out that the rehab is in the hospital. And Damien is talking to a few other people in rehab. And then it goes back to, because that part wasn't important. And then, because, Damien said that he don't talk to nobody in rehab. And I said, well, that is actually important, because he just let it be known what happened, the situation that happened, and he got it off his chest. And he talked to the young men, the men in the rehab. And, they pretty much had his back, and they said, it's okay. We understand. We got you. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, he need that. And then it goes back to Keith, and he talks to his homegirl that he had told Reg that he could, you know, give him some help, because Reg did say that he needed a shooter. He needed somebody that can pow pow if he needed him on site. And then Keith talks to his homegirl, and then, you know, Reg was asking about the homegirl and all that stuff. And then Reg said, I ain't finna be up under no. And I'm like, he too disrespectful. And then Keith said, well, he like them. He like women too. She like women too. And then he said, I said, So she talks to, you know, Keith, he talks to his homegirl about, you know, agreeing to work with Reg. And then she said that she thought she said, I didn't think he was still here with us. And then he was like, but he is. And then he was just pretty much asking, you gonna do it or you not? And he said, do you need some work or you don't? And she agreed. Excuse me. It was something on the thing. I'm sorry, y'all. She agreed to go ahead and, you know, to the deal. I said, oh gosh, we ain't gonna never get rid of Reg. That's what I'm thinking. We ain't gonna never get rid of Reg. And then Tiffany is meeting with the lawyer regarding Miss Danielle's estate. And then Alicia says that this is for Tiffany. So Alicia was in that church talking about their gun violence, and I said that's right up her alley. And then as soon as the sermon was over, then she waltzed her tail in there trying to boss up to Pastor Ezekiel, talking about, so I thought we had a deal. And he said, well, we do. I do have a deal. I have a deal with. He said something smart to her, and it wasn't what she wanted. And she said, but what you were supposed to, you agreed to do this, you agreed to do that. And then he just pretty much was like, she can see her way out, because he was just pretty much telling her that she can't boss him like she thinks she can. Alicia is bossy. And when she saw that she couldn't boss him, then she left. And then the final scene, y'all, was 2 final scenes. So Tiff is at the house and she texting Nook, and she told him, thank you so much for putting the baby bed together. I really do appreciate it. And you know, it just went from there. He was texting her back, and she just, because she liked him anyway, and she ended stuff with Victor because she pretty much told Victor that it ain't gonna work. And I'm like, girl, you always want a Nook. And what you don't know is, once you find out what he did, the egg gonna be just smashed on your face. Because girl, he the one who unalived your child, your child's father. And when I'm like, okay, Tiffany. Okay, Tiffany, but wait till it come out that he's the reason why your child's father has been unalived. And then we mosey back over to the hospital. This the last thing, y'all. Well, 2 of the last things. Hospital. And Emmett is, I think this is gonna be out of place. So let me get to this part. So, you know, Detective Tucson got the address and all that stuff. And, you know, she hops right onto the address, and then she didn't click clacked that darn camera so many darn times, and she caught Reg on the patio smoking. I said, you really think you can be outside in the open on the patio like that? You know that you know that Detective Tucson, she looking for you, or maybe his hands don't know. But anyway, she got all the stuff that she needed. She got that address. He gonna be there. Don't let him be there on episode 10, because he finna go down, and that'll be the perfect episode. That would be the perfect ending for season 7, to see him finally get put down. And then, going back to the hospital, this is the last thing, y'all. Emmett woke up. He woke up. He woke up. And I was just like, and then he said, where Keisha at? And then Darnell said, well, the nurse wouldn't let her come in. And then Darnell went out there and Keisha came back. And then she said, oh. And then I said, that prayer show did help, huh? But this was The Chi. And this is season 7, episode 9. And I'm finna get y'all the title. They done lost respect. And you know who they done lost respect for? They done lost respect for Reginald Taylor. Because we ain't giving him no nickname. I ain't finna give him no nickname. He just so ballsy about what he did and all that stuff. And I'm like, look, it's time for him to go. It really is. It is time for him to G.O. But that was the episode, y'all. I'm finna go ahead and get this uploaded for y'all real quick, fast, and in a hurry. But good night, YouTube. I'm about to go to bed. And make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. And this will be uploaded here soon once I find a few thumbnails to put with the video. Then I have it uploaded. Bye, YouTube. Have a blessed night. Good night. So, Keisha finally had somebody to help. And then Reg playing the game with Keith's protege. And then Nook is kissing his son. And then he also go to Pastor, Zeke's church. Oh, sorry, y'all. He goes to Pastor Zeke's church, which is Papa's daddy's church. And he just pretty much was talking, and he was asking him, well, what is it that he need him to do? And he tells him what he needs him to do. And he just pretty much was telling him that he can help him, because he's still gonna help him. And then Pastor Ezekiel talk about gun violence. And YouTube, that was the video. And what I want y'all to do is like, comment, and subscribe. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, YouTube family.